The first time I saw The Princess Bride, I was absolutely transfixed. I was an impressionable 9 years old, and this movie had everything: pirates, swords, magic, even kissing. The sense of high adventure, battles of wits, revenge, all of these were fused into my personality for years to come. As I've gotten older, the allure of Blades and Moonlight hasn't left me, although some of the context around it has changed. In these, let's say, turbulent times, my rebellious streak has grown into a fundamental drive, a desire to battle tyrannical rulers in my games the same way that I wish I could in real life. Something easily stuck on the end of a sword with a clear victory. Something less bound by the rules that I've come to know so well, where people can truly be as they are, angst, ugly bits, and everything, and wholly accepted. Now the time for these heroes and no, heroines has never been more clear. Limited not to the seas, the land, the skies, the stars even. Some place where swords and hearts cross. Thirsty sword lesbians, bear your heart at your blade.
Now, you don't have to be Don Draper to appreciate a good pitch deck. When deciding on a new game or campaign for your players, pitch decks are a striking way to give them all the information they need in an easily digestible format, and it will get them excited about what's to come. Think of it like selling your friends on a new book or TV show to watch. You can use art from the manual or the internet to draw interest from your players, highlight aspects of the settings that might intrigue them, as well as maybe rules and other differences between each system you might want to run, and gauge their interest for future games. It's a win-win for you and the players. You get to run the game you want, and the players get pumped up for the experience that they chose. Excited players leads to player buy-in, and player buy-in leads to better experiences at the table. I assume you've got your list of modules, campaign settings, and games you'd like to run, so we'll skip past any recommendations and get right to the nitty-gritty. Open up your preferred text document, and let's get into it. Starting with the basics, what do we actually want to communicate with our players about these options? The setting and the general pitch of what they'll be doing is as good a place as any to start. Is it noir, fantasy, horror? What is the tone or goal of the system or setting? Now you can, and in fact should, do this for your homebrew games as much as anything else that you may have found online or purchased. In fact, most published games will have a section in the first couple of pages you can just copy and paste right here. Let's take City of Mist as an example. It says, here's the lowdown. City of Mist is a modern city where myths and legends are real. It's not as if knights and monsters walk down Main Street donning shining armor or breathing fire, but rather that knights and monsters are reborn inside ordinary people, regular Joes and Janes. And it goes on to explain some bits of the lore, the world, etc. Don't feel like you're stuck with the book's description either. You might want to rewrite or highlight certain bits to appeal to specific players in your group. But a good rule of thumb is to keep it to 3 short paragraphs. 2 about the setting, and 1 about what the players will actually be doing during the course of the campaign. Are they members of a secret organization, a crew of criminals, or ordinary citizens linked together by fate? Are they solving crime, slaying vampires, killing God? Give your players something to imagine their characters doing, and why that's exciting, but keep it quick and evocative. Once we have that down, we'll break down our games into some easy-to-rate categories so players have a clearer idea of what they're signing up for. Ratings can be however you want, out of 10, 5 out of 5 stars, or even just low, medium, high in a general vibe sense. Whatever floats your boat. Now, some of my favorite categories here would be player buy-in. How much do the players actually have to know about the world prior to making their characters? Is it something they can easily just jump in and figure it out on the way, or do they need a primer on the world and their place in it? Is the level of politicking very basic, a good versus evil Lord of the Rings, Star Wars sort of situation, or is it closer to Game of Thrones where there's a lot of factions that they have to keep happy? You might even include a rating of how much math is going to be involved, if the system uses something with a lot of modifiers and equations. For example, Blades in the Dark would be considered low math because you roll a bunch of dice and only count the highest one. You don't add or subtract anything. A high math game might be something like Warhammer Fantasy or GURPS. This is part of why it's important to read the manual all the way through before starting a game. It's not so much to memorize everything, but it gives you a good sense of how things sort of piece together, and it will give you information on setting these ratings. You may also want to include trigger warnings for specific games. For example, if your Pugmire game may involve, well, dogs dying, or just how dark your Vampire the Masquerade game will get. Of course, many of these things can be negotiated with your players at session 0, but it is kind of hard to run a game of Apocalypse Keys without themes of isolation, monstrosity, and guilt. You could also include comparisons to Touchstone Media, some books, TV shows, and movies that evoke a similar feeling to the game you're trying to run. And yet, other considerations might be more practical. Are we going to use miniatures? Special dice. I know, we've all got tons of dice, but some games, like those from Fantasy Flight or using the Fate system, might use dice that not everyone keeps ready in their bag. Is this game going to be played in person or online? If the game does play online, are you going to use a virtual tabletop or just over video chat? Are there any specific house rules or third-party supplements you're including? For some games, you might want to include which books will and won't be included for character creation. You should aim to answer most, if not all, of these questions before building your deck, so that your players can go in with as much context and knowledge as possible. Once you've got all these answers, we can finally begin to work on the pitch deck itself. Now, while you can just use the text document you made and use that as your pitch deck, humans are visual creatures. We love to have these images and beautiful presentations, and that's really going to help sell your players and increase that buy-in. Face it, we've all picked up a game just because of the artwork. Let's take advantage of that instinct. To build the deck, you can use any kind of slideshow software. You can use PowerPoint, or in this case, I'm going to use Canva. In fact, I'll have a link down below to this one that I'm building so you can use it as an example for yourself. Now, I like to start with a title page because it feels kind of weird to just open directly to the information, right? It feels like you might have missed a slide or something. After the title slide, I like to include my list of ratings and the exact metrics that I use in order to determine that. This can also be a place where you set other expectations, what times you're going to play and where. If your group already has a regular time in place, you don't necessarily have to include that, but it might be helpful if you have some forgetful players. And now we move on to the first game. You'll definitely want to make the art the focus, either a large evocative image as the background, or no more than 3 smaller images. Don't forget to include the name of the game or campaign. Then you can just copy and paste what we had in our text document and format it to look nice. I split the pitch section down from the ratings to make it a little bit easier to parse. And there you have it. You just repeat the process for as many games as you want to pitch. B, Biscuit Wolf's resident layout designer and professional PowerPointer, has insisted that I read some of these tips, lest they steal my soul and hide it in the woods again. If you're using a strong or colorful image as the background, put a lighter, semi-opaque bubble behind the text to make it easier to read. Speaking of easy to read, don't make your font so small that it becomes nearly impossible to. I did that once and B had the Hat Man steal all my good socks. Also, try to stick with a simple black or white text font to improve readability. When in doubt, set down your computer on one side of the room and slowly take steps back to see how easy it is to read at the various distances. You'll notice in the slide templates that we prepared that there is a sort of moat around the edges of the slides. This keeps things tidy and prevents the text from sliding around when it's being exported. And the rest of this page looks like it's smeared in blood, but I think that's a good place to start at least. Back to the pitches themselves, I feel like 5 games is about the maximum of what you want to pitch at a time. Too many pitches can lead to decision paralysis and a constant second guessing of if the players chose the one they feel the best about. Giving a small handful of games with a wide variety of tones and styles will also let players feel more confident about the ones they choose. Some software, like Canva, allows voting right there on the slide, or other groups might find it's better to get together with their players and discuss at a later time. Now, in the description below, you'll find the template that we made that you can take and modify for your own home games. Be creative with this. It's just a little bit of effort that will go a long way into hooking your players into the games that you want to run and they want to play. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments below. Shoot us an email at biscuitwolfgames@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky at biscuitwolfgames. You can also find some of our games and supplements at our itch.io and DriveThruRPG under the Biscuit Wolf banner. We'll see you next time.